Hey guys, this is Warwick from Casual Chess, back for another 5-minute game today. So it looks like I'm playing an opponent from Peru. He starts with e4, I play e5, and let's get into it from here. Okay, looks like we'll play the 4 knights game today. I always hate that move, d4, and I never quite know how to respond to it. I think in this circumstance we'll play d6, we'll try and build up slowly, and we'll try and avoid letting the opponent get the advantage here. Got no problems with this at the moment. Okay, I think we'll simply retake with the other knight. Retakes and retakes. Okay, I'm pretty happy with all of this so far. How it's turning out isn't bothering me. I'm expecting now to castle, and I probably will after getting this knight rather, to safety. I think we'll drop him back to nc6. I may actually play queen to d7 and look to castle queenside this time. I think I will. So what's next? I think I'll play b6 because I don't want to have to keep protecting that a7 pawn too much with my knight. I'll redirect that knight now through a5 and then to c4. I was expecting that move, and hopefully I can get this bishop off the board. That would be really good. I'm playing more quickly than I usually do, and I probably will win this bishop. Although, should I instead try and take the pawn on a3? I think I will take the pawn on a3, actually. I will not be retaking there. I see, that's actually a mate in one if I don't make the correct move now. With that in mind, king to b8, so the mate would have been queen to a8. If pawn takes on d6, I think I will retake with my bishop. And that will give me the option of maybe having a check on the h2 square in future if the f4 pawn there is gotten rid of at some point. I will have to look at dropping back my knight as well though, because after a move like knight to d5, I am going to be... Here we go, that is that knight to d5 move. Okay, so my idea now would be to play something like c6, but then after knight takes, I will lose that that bishop. So what about something then like rook to e8? Oh, of course, I've just thrown away my knight there. What have I done that for? That's stupid. This is what happens when you try and play early in the morning and you're not paying attention. Okay, well I suppose I can say I expected that now. I still want to play something like c6, but I think c6, knight takes on b6, and it looks not so good for me. Okay. I think what I'll do is I'll play queen b5. Since that bishop is now protected on the e7 square, and I'm going to have to do a bit of a fight back. I'm maybe forcing the queen to defend, I was going to say defend that b4 square, but I'm going to be kicked away. I have to be careful about where I go to next. I was looking now at just something like c4, but I think after c4 there's some risk that my opponent may play something like rook to d4. So I think what I'll do is I will drop back in that respect. Queen c6. Okay, that's the sort of move I was expecting. Again, dropping back to the b7 square to protect the pawn on a7. I didn't want to get roped in with this pawn, but unfortunately that's the way it's gone. Okay, now what about this move? D takes e5. D takes e5 actually threatens the queen with a revealed check, and he's missed it. He's lost his queen there. It's another pawn for me, and now it's 2 rooks and a queen versus 2 rooks and a bishop and knight. Okay. So what's coming next is almost certainly going to be rook takes a7. So after rook takes a7, I'll retake with the queen, and that'll be 2 rooks for the queen. I'm happy with that. That'll be 2 rooks then versing. Okay, surprised not to see that move. He's missed a mate in 1, unfortunately. Well, I have to say that game was very back and forth. I definitely threw away the game for a little while there when I lost that piece there, the knight over on, I think it was the a3 square, or it might have been a4. But my opponent's thrown away his queen, so I suppose that's a lesson about what happens when you're focusing on your own plans rather than paying attention to your opponents as well. There's definitely got to be that healthy balance between paying attention to what you're doing, paying attention to what they're doing, and keeping an eye out for the options on the board. Anyway, let's get into the analysis, and I think we already know what's going to happen. It'll be very up and down, but let's check it out anyway. Back in a second. Okay guys, we're back with the analysis now. So as you can see, as usual, top right hand corner, my accuracy score versus my opponent's 62.2 for me versus 58.5 for him. Obviously that's not up with the 90s where I usually like it, as I always say, but it's good to come back and get the win anyway. So best moves, 10 for me, 9 for him, pretty much the same. 2 excellent moves for me, 1 for him, pretty much the same. And good moves and booked moves are both very similar. More inaccuracies from me, 5 to 2. More mistakes from my opponent though, 3 to 1. And certainly more blunders for my opponent, and these are the ones that really matter, of course. 2 blunders for him, 1 for me. Checking the graph out below this, you can see he really did start to get the advantage over time. However, he threw it away, and we quickly took advantage of that. Let's see what really happened here. So after I dropped my queen back to the b7 square, and he played his pawn from b4 to b5 up, it's suggesting that that was a mistake and that a better move was actually knight to b5. I'm sure you can see why, because if knight to b5, he's really starting to pile up on that a7 square. So something like a6 is not so good, because it really does weaken my position, and after queen takes, queen is really forced to retake, rook takes, and now he's really invading this position here in a way which is definitely going to make me feel fairly uncomfortable. Anyway, so moving back to where we were in the game, queen b7, we play on. Now after this pawn takes on e5, I revealed an attack here from my bishop on e7 on his queen on a3 up here. And he simply didn't see that. Now I thought this was going to be a good move, because after he was forced to move his queen, I'd get another piece take, pawn take rather, on f4. But he didn't see that, and he was paying attention too much to his own moves. And upon retakes, this big blunder, he's really lost it there. So I take the queen, expecting the rook to be taken there, and you can see how the game played out. I really started to take advantage of that mistake. Now after that move there, rook d2, my opponent played h3, and I have to say I was definitely expecting not h3, but rook takes a7. After queen takes, because I don't really have many options here, rook retakes, king takes, and now we have 2 rooks versus a bishop and a knight. Plus I also have a 1 pawn advantage at that point. This is where I was expecting to have to get the win from. And with limited time on the board, 1 minute and 15 seconds, that's actually quite difficult. I was then expecting to follow up something like bishop to g3, forcing me to drop the rook back to defend that pawn on c7 and just play a little bit passively. Now that's what I was expecting. It didn't play out. So instead, after h3, I took the pawn here on c2, probably just being a little bit greedy rather than looking for tactical maneuvers. You can see that rook g5 is best. And why is that? Well, it's because the queen will then zoom up and get the take on g2, which will also be checkmate. That was the idea, of course, forcing him to defend. Now, I didn't see that, but nonetheless, my opponent did drop back to g3, trying to attack that rook there. It's currently on e5, and that's where he missed that I was already lining up with my other rook on the g2 square. So following that, we have the easy checkmate. And look, it's kind of a shame that the game was thrown away like that. I don't really like to see a game decided by blunders on either side. A loss for me or a win for me, but these things happen, and certainly a lot for him to improve on. I think I did say the lesson already, and I think that's probably the correct lesson. You definitely need to make sure you're paying attention not just to your own plans, but your opponent's plans as well, and the options available on the board. And the perfect example of that is right here. That's it there. So that d takes e5 with a revealed attack on the queen. That's a perfect example of why you need to pay attention to what your opponent's doing, even if you think you've got them on the ropes, and you can just pay attention to your own plan. Alright guys, look, I'll leave it there for today. I appreciate you watching. Give it a like if you would like to. If you don't, then please let me know why and what I can do to improve. Thanks for that guys, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.